Welcome to the Church of the Week program on AM 630, The Word. Each week, we highlight a different local church or ministry impacting our community. Now let's welcome our Church of the Week host, Chad Schapiro, and today's guest.
Hey everybody, this is Chad Schapiro, and I'm just grateful to be the host of Church of the Week. I want to thank AM 630, The Word, for putting on this incredible program. It's Church of the Week. Today, I'm blessed to work with Texas Baptists in this region, also something called Pastor Strong, to help senior pastors and their holistic health. And today, we have an incredible honor with A World for Children, with Christine and Marni. And I just want to get into it right away. If you are watching this on Facebook, if you could share, if you could like, if you could comment, this is the kind of message that could literally change lives when people get a chance to hear it. And I want to hear exactly from you guys. You know, what is A World for Children? What is it, and what is the God doing in and through it?
Sure. Well, thank you for having us here today.
Yeah.
A World for Children, we are a nonprofit child placing agency, and we work with foster children who come into the system here in Texas, and we both facilitate foster care and do adoptions through our program. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. And how long have you guys been doing it?
A World for Children originated in 1997, so we've been around quite a while, and so... Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Amen. And so that's Marni, in
yes.
case anybody wants to know. And she's a great singer. So if you need to bring her.
She is.
Yeah, if you want to bring her there. So we're going to do it right now. She's going to kill me. We're not going to do it. But we did do it in the testing, and she rocked it. She did great. And Christine and I did not for many
Christine
different reasons.
Christine is not a good singer.
Yeah. And so how did you all start working together on this project? How did that start?
Sure. Go ahead.
Is it just in San Antonio? Is it A World for Children all over the world? Or
we're across Texas. We have 11 offices across Texas. We started out of Round Rock, as Marni said, in 1997, and we've grown across the state. Now we have offices that service every region of Texas. We're as far up as the Panhandle and Amarillo. We cover El Paso, down to the Rio Grande Valley, East Texas, and pretty much everything in between. So if you really live anywhere in Texas, you can find an A World for Children office close by to you, which is great.
And so how did you guys, I know the story is different for each of you, but how did you first get involved with the organization? Was this already a burden that got put on your heart, or why don't you start?
Sure. Well, I use wonderful moisturizer, so you would never know that I've been with A World for Children actually since 1998. And so I was a social worker, and I walked into the office there in Round Rock and got to know the founders, and I've been there ever since.
Wow, that's great.
So that's kind of how...
As a social worker.
Yes, as a social worker. It just, led my heart, and the way that the organization was run as a family atmosphere and as a, faith-based agency. I just felt like that was my calling and where I needed to be.
Mm-hmm. Amen. How about you, Christine?
So, I actually, I've been I use great moisturizer as well. But I started working in the child welfare space in 2005. And I actually met Marni through a collaborative group that we were both on. And she was at the time working for A World for Children, had already been working there for several years. And I just felt really pulled by the mission of A World for Children, how they served their children and families, just in talking with her and finding out more about the agency. And I realized while I enjoyed, I was still working in child welfare as a social worker as well. I just really felt connected to A World for Children's mission in particular. And so I think I emailed her and said, a little birdie has told me a little bit more about A World for Children, and I'd love to see how I can come serve with you over there. And I guess that's where it goes from there. And now we've been working together for almost 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
What are some of the greatest challenges you've seen just to try to serve God in this area?
Well, as we all know in any industry, there is a spiritual battle going on in our country, in our world, in our state. And anytime you're trying to serve children and fight the good fight, the enemy is going to come for that. Yeah. And so some of the challenges, of course, are, children. We always want children to be able to reunify with their biological families if it's appropriate. Mm-hmm. But there's many people involved, and we don't always have a say or control what that outcome's going to be.
Yeah.
And when you look at what's in the best interest for a child, and that's kind of the tagline that everybody uses, when you make those decisions for what's best for a child, somebody's going to have a heartbreak. Mm-hmm. It's whether it's going to be the biological family, the foster family, sometimes the child, somebody's going to have a heartbreak. So it can be challenging sometimes bringing all the partners together to try to make the best decision for the outcome for a child, for the trajectory for the rest of their life. That's a heavy burden to bear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I can imagine.
Yeah.
And when we have a countless numbers of people that are listening online, watching on Facebook or listening to the radio, which is a blessing. How do they fit into this? If I'm sitting there and going, I have a burden for this as well.
Right.
Are they able to help churches and or people involved?
Right. Well, the nice thing is that there really is a place for everyone in this work. To the listeners, first, I would say truly from our heart, I think praying for us, for our families and our kids and our staff, being on the front lines and doing the work that we do, we need that prayer. I think the second part is contacting an organization like A World for Children and finding out where you do fit in. Because, of course, our biggest need is we need people to foster children. We need loving homes to take the children in and to provide them that care. But not everybody can foster for different reasons, different circumstances in their life. So there are so many other ways with A World for Children you can get involved, whether that be providing respite or babysitting for our foster parents so they can get a little bit of a break.
Yeah, sure.
That's a great need we have is looking for those babysitting or respite providers. The other things that we definitely need assistance with, we do a program called Bridging the Gap. And that program is providing for our kids the extra mile, meaning back to school supplies. Mm-hmm. We do a picnic every year at Six Flags where we bring in all of our children from all across the state to come to the picnic for a time to just get to do those fun things over the summer that, other kids get to do and something to talk about when they go back to school. Yeah. Christmas is huge for us. Mm-hmm. So getting involved, we need people to wrap Christmas presents when that time comes. Sponsorship for the Christmas party. I know you want to talk a little bit about, we have a Christmas party coming up here in San Antonio in December.
So every year, all of our offices across the state, Christmas is big at AWFC, and we really love to celebrate this time of year. It's just such a happy time of year, and each of our offices has a big party. And in San Antonio, our party is going to be on December 14th this year, Sunday, December 14th. And every child in preparation for that party, every single one of our kiddos, and when we say every kiddo, we don't just mean the children, the foster kiddos. We adoptive, everybody gets a wish list. All the kiddos get a wish list, and they fill it out with their top 3 wishes. And we spend a big part of our time prior to the party, finding sponsorship and donations for all of those gifts. A lot of people like to gather the wish lists, and businesses and people like to gather the wish lists and go out and shop and buy the gifts. And then we get together and we wrap them all, and we bring them to the party. Santa brings them to the party. Santa shows up at all of our parties. He makes a stop at all of our parties, and brings all of the gifts for the kiddos. And it's just a really fun time. It's so exciting just to see the looks on all the kids' faces as they get to open all their gifts and all of that. So we're always looking for assistance this time of year too.
So that's what I was going to ask. I mean, having an event like this, right, was so new or near to when you're probably watching this online or listening on the radio is a blessing. And to jump in to be able to connect a little bit with you guys, but no long-term commitment when they don't know much about the organization so far. Mm-hmm. So how would they get involved? Where would they contact you guys?
I recommend going to our website. That would probably be the best way to find out more about us, what we do, just a little bit more about what we do, more about our Bridging the Gap program that Marni talked about, more about the process. If you're interested to become a foster parent, you can find out all the details on there. And also you can find out all of our different locations. So if anybody is listening to this or watching this that isn't in San Antonio, like I said, we have 11 offices across the state. And you can inquire straight through the website to all the different offices directly. And someone will get right back to you with a way that you can help or a way you can be part of our mission.
And we have events throughout the year. April is Child Abuse Prevention Month, and May is Foster Parent Appreciation Month. And so, again, if not everybody can provide foster care, but what we can do is support the people that are providing foster care. And so getting involved in those months that we do, November is actually National Adoption Month, and we have quite a few adoptions coming up. So again, care packages, anything you can do to support a foster family that's taking care of these children, that's a support that is greatly needed and that is very appreciated to the agency and certainly to the families and kids.
Yeah.
So do you guys have a testimonial or two that we could hear just about how God has used your organization and to be a blessing to the kids? Anything stick out in your mind?
Yes. I feel like God has always provided for us. Like I said, this agency was started in 1997, literally at the founder's kitchen table. They were just people that cared as well. And at that time, they hoped to serve 100 children. That was their dream. And through the years, we have served thousands and thousands of children. And so we feel like God has certainly showed us his favor. I think the other thing that we've been really blessed to do, a lot of times kids that are older in foster care, the odds of them getting adopted certainly decrease when they become teenagers. And everybody's, kind of like scared, like, ooh, a teenager. So a lot of times those kids are forgotten. Well, one of the programs that we created through A World for Children is called our Launch Program. And what we do is every summer we take our kids that are 14 and up to a camp that we fully run. It's our people. We're trained in running the camp, and we do a theme every year. But what we do is we bring in things like the FBI to talk to them about internet safety, as well as even having a career in the FBI, what that would take. We bring in colleges, the military, different organizations to show them if you age out of foster care, the statistics are grim. Homelessness and, kids getting incarcerated, those statistics are a grim picture. Our role, we feel like, is to try to make that statistic not a reality for our kids. So by doing this launch camp, the way we close launch camp every year with our teens, and some of our teens have been with us so long, they've been now to 4 camps in a row. And one of the things we tell them when we close out the camp is when you leave foster care, no matter where you are, if something happens and you need help, you call our phone number. We're going to be here, and we can't promise what we can or cannot do, but we are your family. That's never going to change. And so we feel like God has provided us with the funding and the opportunities to provide for our older teens.
Amen. Amen. You are listening to Ministry of the Week today is where we get to celebrate Ministry of the Week, and we are on AM 630, The Word. So grateful for the opportunity. Also, KSLR.com. My name is Chad Schapiro. We are on A World for Children, talking about that today. A World for Children with Christine and Marni. Any other story that rings a bell? Is thousands of kids, to bless them, having these beautiful events. And thank you for sharing that. I've always heard about the statistics about after when they get older, how challenging it is. Any other story ring a bell to you guys?
Christine, you can think of anything? Well, certainly, like I mentioned before, our primary, thing that we do is foster care. However, we do facilitate adoptions. And I will say we have had, back to kind of the older youth, we have had kids that have come into care that they've been in the system for 6 years plus, and they think they're about to age out. And we've had more than one scenario where they actually were adopted by our foster parents on their 18th birthday.
Wow.
And we have families all over the state that some of the kids that have aged out, one of our foster dads, he's walked multiple kids down the aisle when they've gotten married after they've aged out of foster care. Yeah. And so, I think the testimony is just that we really do have loving people that do the ultimate sacrifice. When people talk about, and when the Bible talks about, taking care of the widow and the orphans, what does that mean? Amen. Well, that means sacrificing. They sacrifice a lot, in regards to their biological children. They have to give up certain things. And that's why one of the things that, again, is kind of unique about our program is that when we do sponsorships for, the picnic, our big picnic we do at Six Flags, or big events, we always include the biological children and children they've adopted, because we believe the family's a unit. Yeah. And we don't want to label foster children. We don't want to label biological children. When people take foster children into their home, we believe that is the family as a whole.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah. Amen. So in terms of, you guys have been doing this for a few years, right? What is What have you seen that seems like it's getting a little worse maybe in time, not just with your organization,
Yes.
but in the foster care?
I would have to say, I think what's been getting worse is when children finally come into the foster care system, their trauma seems to be more severe than it was probably 10 years ago. That's one of the things that's been difficult to watch. And especially also when children come into foster care, they get the services they need. And let's say they're able to be reunified. They get reunified with their family. And then for whatever unfortunate reason, they come back into the foster care system. That kind of back and forth for kids is very traumatic and causes a lot of just upset for their kids. So I would say, like I was mentioning earlier, just the state of our world right now. People are struggling. And anytime, poverty is higher, people are having a harder time paying their bills, those stressors go up, and that means bad things for kids when they're not in a healthy environment. So I would say that, the kids that are coming in, like I mentioned earlier, people kind of get fearful of teenagers, which there's a lot of great things about teenagers. But now what we're seeing is the little ones, they have a lot of pretty severe trauma, more so than I would say 10, 15 years ago. And so we're working with these little guys, 1 and 2 years old, that just have such trauma that they have to work through that. So that can be very difficult, not only for our foster families to face these new challenges of children responding to their trauma, but it certainly affects our people, our staff as well.
I was also going to say, what we've noticed, I think, over the past few years especially, is that there's more need for foster families. Texas has a big issue with a lot of children in care, but not a lot of homes. One thing that we really are a big proponent of is, for children to live in a family home, a family environment, as opposed to, a facility type living environment or a shelter type living environment. And so being able to find foster homes, families that are willing to open their heart and their home to serve a child, has gotten a little bit more difficult over the years with not being able to find as many homes. And then homes that are interested in working with all different types of children. As Marni's mentioned a couple times, teenagers is a big demographic that we're always looking for, and being able to find homes that are willing to work with teenagers, find homes that are willing to work with babies or toddlers.
And certainly sibling groups.
That
has definitely increased as well. And when kids are removed from their biological home, they're already dealing with lots of just fear and anxiety and what's going to happen. And there is nothing more heartbreaking than siblings having to be separated.
Yeah.
So getting people to work with or being willing to take a sibling group of 2 or 3, that's a huge need, because sometimes people only have one opening, and when they absolutely can't find a home for them, they have to split up those siblings, and that's just a whole additional trauma that's not necessary.
Yeah.
I think any of us that are parents or even have siblings can relate to the thought of, oh my goodness, like my kiddos being split up from their, siblings is just not, it's just horrible. So that's good. I'm glad you mentioned that. Sibling homes that are willing to take sibling groups is something that we're definitely always needing. I
think to open somebody that's brand new that's thinking about it is probably nervous, scared. What would be some baby steps maybe? Sure. You mentioned about or I've heard of babysitting, taken care of so they give a break. Would that be a on-ramp maybe to learn more about it?
For sure.
Absolutely.
What are some different ways?
That is a good on-ramp. Just kind of testing the waters with doing some babysitting to see. But I think when you were talking about the challenges a minute ago, I also think there's a lot of misconceptions about foster care, right? Not everything that's reported about it is accurate. And there's some negativity that surrounds it, all the things. So I think one thing when you're talking about how would somebody kind of get more information or get, their feet wet with it, I think the important thing is, certainly you have to pass a background check. You have to have the square footage. But beyond that, it's really about, do you have a willingness to be trained in how to work with traumatized children? And if you have that openness and you have the love to give, that's what we're looking for. I think sometimes people think there's a misconception like, oh, I have to have a master's degree in child psychology. That's great if you do. That's fabulous, but that isn't required. What's required is, again, you have to pass the background check. There's certain state requirements, But at the end of the day, it's about, are you willing to open your home, have the patience, have the love to serve these children? And if you do, there are children that are absolutely waiting that, and again, every day we get requests for an opportunity to place a child. And most of the time lately, we have to turn them away because we don't have any more openings. The beds are just not there. And that was a big reason we wanted this opportunity with you. We need loving people to open their homes to serve these children and especially in San Antonio, we live in a large city, so larger the city, you're going to have more volume. Yeah. And so we certainly have a need. And like I mentioned, sibling groups, if you're willing to take, let's say, this is just an example, but a 7-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a toddler, those kind of sibling groups, we see those come through, unfortunately, pretty often.
I was going to say the other thing besides looking into babysitting and respite, if you're just wanting a little bit of information, like, okay, well, what is fostering exactly? What are the requirements? What does that mean? What does the training look like? I mentioned our website earlier. If anybody wants to go to our website, which is awfc.org, we do have links on there and a calendar on there. We have weekly virtual information meetings. So, and there's no pre-registration or anything like that. Just jump on and join us one day each week. And if you have questions, we're there to answer questions. We're there to go over the process, to go through all the ins and outs of what it means to be a foster parent, and also ways you can help. How do I get into babysitting? How do I get into respite? We're there to answer all those questions once a week through our website. So, yeah. So,
again, if those guys listening and watching, go to the website and learn more about the informational sessions. Jump on there, ask questions, get comfortable. I would imagine, just like for you guys, you didn't know you'd be sitting here, right, talking about this many years ago, and now it's you love it. Yes. And I would think those of us sitting at home that aren't doing anything, that could be the same way for each of us, but we've got to step a little foot in the door and start to get more comfortable.
Yes.
So we talked about what's the challenges in your years of doing it so far. What have you seen getting better, especially through your organization?
I think what's gotten better is the caliber of training and knowing how to work with traumatized children. Mm-hmm. We are doing a lot better work on understanding the needs of children, and that many times when children are having a certain behavior, it's not that they just are a child that's acting up, but rather it's a response to either their system, their chemical imbalance, or their trauma. And so I think we have a lot more education and a lot more resources on how to serve children that come from those traumatic backgrounds.
And resources in general. I just think obviously our communities, there's more out there for children that have come from the situations that they've come from, for families. And we do a better job, I think, of identifying what those resources are and connecting our families and our kids with what those resources are.
This is so terrific. I love it. And I think many of our churches that are around San Antonio, and those of us that are just listening or watching, this is an opportunity that God's calling us to be able to be the hands and feet of Christ, to not just sit back and receive, but to go out there and serve. And when we do, we get that much more inspired, and we feel that much more just God's love over us as He utilizes us for the purpose that we've had in our lives. And I'm sure you guys feel that way too in this space. Like God is using you in a great way. We're about to wrap it up. Are there any last things? We've got events. We've got the website. I love that we have those informational calls. Mm-hmm. Anything you want to share? Future plans for the organization, or anything that's...
I think we just want to say, this, we believe in divine appointments. We think you're listening to this today for a reason. And again, we're open to talking to you and walking you through the process. And that's what our goal is at A World for Children.
Amen. God bless you. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for joining us this week for Church of the Week. Please visit us online at am630theword.com for more information or to listen to previous Church of the Week programs. If you'd like to recommend your church be featured on a future program, please email us at churchoftheweek@kslr.com.